All right, welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Free Mind Podcast. I'm joined by a guest today. Super pumped to be joined by a veteran on Veterans Day, Brad Robinson from Kaizenergy. I say it correctly?
Kaizenergy.
And I was actually familiar with the term Kaizen, continuous improvement, which is what Japanese, right?
Japanese.
Because I did a lot of recruiting in the past, and so they were always looking for people with Kaizen process experience for the jobs I was working on. So I thought that was really cool, and obviously you'll talk more about that. But Brad is joining me today. We're kind of neighbors, I guess, right? We're in the same building. And funny story, before I kick it over to you, the way I met Brad officially was my car was broken down. You helped give me a jump, and we got to talking, and I was like, dude, you should be on the podcast. And so here we are. We've seen each other in passing, and I get really focused on stuff, and sometimes people think that I'm being like a dick or whatever, but I literally just don't notice people sometimes. So it's good to finally sit down with you, brother. And why don't you tell everybody about yourself?
Well, like you said, Brad Robinson. I've been in the health and wellness industry for 27 years now. I started when I was 16, just working at a YMCA out on the fitness floor. Got my first personal training certification. Then I noticed when people were struggling, most times it was because of nutrition. Right?
Definitely.
I know you do some nutrition coaching as well.
Absolutely.
So I went and got certified as a nutritionist. Then I saw clients that were having aches and pains in their bodies, and I was referring out to other therapists. And I said, you know what? I've been training this person for 2 years. I might know their body a little bit better. So I went and got licensed as a massage therapist. And all along those years in the industry, did just about everything, management, ran regions, taught just about all the group fitness classes. But then I saw when people were really struggling with hitting plateaus and whatnot, most times it was mindset. Mm-hmm. It was the psychology holding them back. And so I went and got licensed as a wellness coach, using behavioral psychology to help people identify where it is they're trying to go to, what the obstacles are standing in the way, and then teach them how to create strategies to move around those obstacles and keep getting changes.
Okay. So where does the military factor in through all that? Was that during, before, after?
During. So basically I was, when I was in the Marine Corps, first of all, I started out when I was in high school. I started training with the Marines through what's called the DEP program. It's the Delayed Entry Program. Okay. So I would train with the Marines on the weekends and whatnot, once a month and all that, getting ready for boot camp. And I took a break from college and went into boot camp, did my job training and everything. And, then I was on active duty during that time that I was off from college. Probably not the smartest direction that I did, because I took an entire major semester off to go to boot camp. I could have kept my scholarships if I would have just went and did it in between, like in the summers.
Hindsight's 2020.
Hindsight's 2020, But funny story is that when I went into boot camp, I had the brilliant idea that since I'd been training with the Marines for a little while, I was going to get the old Marine Corps emblem tattooed on my arm. And drill instructors didn't notice for about the first week, but then one drill instructor went by me, stopped and said, "Oh, drill instructors." And he called all the drill instructors over. He's like, "What is this?" Said that he was going to rip my arm off and give it back to me when I graduated. Oh, shit. And then he said, "No." He's like, "F that. You're not graduating. I promise you, you will not leave my island." And he said that every time somebody was up on the quarterdeck getting punished, right, I was going to be up there getting punished with them, earning this. So that was a fun time.
So basically the premise is you're not allowed to have that until you actually get through. Yeah, you're technically not a Marine.
You're a recruit. You're a recruit. Why do you got a Marine Corps tattoo on you?
Damn. So did the other guys give you shit over that, or was it just
a drill instructor?
They probably felt bad for you.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, this guy's getting punished again.
Oh, geez, man. That's brutal. Which is kind of funny, because you got it because you were proud of what it stands for. But
the funny thing is, though, the guy who gave me the hardest time in boot camp, there's an event at the end of boot camp called the Crucible, and you go through it's 50-something miles of marching, and you get over a 2.5 day period. You only get 2.5 MREs, right? And he was the guy who passed me the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor into my hand, which signifies you're now one of us.
The dude who gave you the hardest time?
The dude who gave me the hardest time.
Oh, that's fitting, right?
Yeah,
that's
right.
cool. So when was this? Like what year was this, and when did you serve?
That was from 97 to 2001. So,
and
then some time after that too, as
Gotcha.
a reservist, inactive reserve, and all that stuff afterwards. So 2000, I'm going through all the boot camp in the early 2000 and stuff in the cold in January.
So then 9/11 happens the next year. Was that were you done before or after 9/11?
I was technically still in, so I was put on standby.
Gotcha.
Because I speak some foreign languages.
Okay.
So I was technically still in, because when you sign on with the Marine Corps, you can do like a 6x2 or a 4x4. I did a 4x4.
Got it.
So I still had to be inactive reserves for the next 4 years. So
man, yeah, that was a crazy time, dude.
Oh yeah, I wasn't allowed to leave the state or anything like
right,
that. So.
Right. God. So Kaizenergy, we're going to get to that. I kind of want to talk about like leading up to it, because you're a really interesting dude. Like when we were talking in the parking lot, no problem, man. When we were talking in the parking lot, just kind of all the different stuff you have your hands in, and in the different areas you're interested in. I mean, from obviously the bodywork stuff to the mindset stuff, and you do MMA, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu stuff. Like what? Whenever I meet people like you, people who are clearly ambitious, into all kinds of things, I always like to kind of dig into what do you think caused you to be that way, from the perspective of like growing up, because I personally, I think that I sort of was a go-getter, get after it type person because of having a lot of adversity as a kid.
Yeah.
So, and I've talked to people who have had that and who haven't. And it's always fascinating to me, especially the people who really had like nice childhoods and then somehow still ended up being like a bad MFer because they're just driven. So I'm just curious, like, where does that come from with you?
Well, it's funny. You and I were talking before the podcast about what I call the slingshot effect, when things are pushing you down for so far, and it creates that potential energy. I had two older brothers that were a little mean to me. And I mean, they put it on me, in and out of the hospital and whatnot.
No shit.
One brother shot me.
Shot you with what? Like
it was like there used to be these Daisy I
had a Daisy.
Like the CO2 in there, and so the more you pump it, the harder it is. And he's like pointing it at me, like point blank range. And he's like, "Where's my knife? I know you got my knife." And I said, "I don't have your knife. You're lying." Shot me in the leg. It's like it was spurting. So, it had an artery, right? Mm-hmm. It was lodged up in the bone, and I'm walking around. I mean, it's like it's soaked an entire sheet with blood. I'm 8 years old at the time.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so I'm walking around going to school limping, and we finally we got it x-rayed. They saw it in there. I remember they injected me numerous times. My mom's watching them dig it out from it's stuck up in the bone. And, man, when that stuff wears off when you get home. Brutal. Yeah. So to answer your question, I mean, I was picked on a lot by them, not per se in school. I was kind of like I was a bully beater. I called myself a bully beater because I was bullied at home. And I was a skinny little guy, too. But, like, when I saw people getting bullied, I would intentionally pick a fight with the bully.
Really?
Intentionally pick a fight with the bully. I never picked a fight with anybody else. I was super nice. But if there was a bully, I was going to, go and confront him. Started high school. I was 5'5", 80 pounds.
Jeez.
80 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, my brothers told me that I was so skinny I could hula hoop through a Cheerio.
So were your brothers bigger guys? Or?
Yeah, my brother had a brother that was a cousin that we adopted, and he was kind of not that big, maybe 165 pounds, but just like
still
broad
like double
iron.
Your weight.
Right, exactly. But super, super athletic. He broke the vertical jump record and the dip record at our high school. Just really, really mean. He had a rough upbringing himself, just really mean. Then my blood brother, he was 6'1", 230.
Oh, Jesus.
So it was like the movie Twins. You remember the movie Twins with Danny DeVito and Schwarzenegger?
And you were Danny DeVito.
I was Danny DeVito.
So you think having big brothers that kind of kicked your ass around,
100%.
that's what really drove you to want to be better later on in life?
Absolutely.
cool, man.
Kind of down deep, I said, nobody's ever going to do this to me
Yeah,
again.
yeah. It's funny how, because I have a sibling, I have a sister, but same deal. I mean, we beat each other up, like gave each other shit when we were younger constantly, and it's like you get that weird phenomenon where it's like you will say some of the worst stuff to one another, but if anybody from the outside says anything to one of you, it's hell no. Only I can say that kind of stuff to them. So is it kind of like that? Like they would kick your ass, but then
they were
if anybody,
protective. Yeah, they were protective of me. Sure.
I've always loved that dynamic with siblings, and I'm actually really excited. Hopefully my wife and I will add one soon too, because we have one kid, and we're trying, but I can't wait to see all that stuff play out.
How old is your daughter?
She's 4.
She's 4. Okay,
she's 4, and hopefully I'll be getting her into BJJ pretty soon.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm always curious about that because it fascinates me how people who are incredibly ambitious, how they get that. Is it nature? Is it nurture? Is it a combination? So with you, I know you said you went to college as well, and I apologize if you already said what you studied while you were there. Was it?
I studied foreign languages and exercise science.
Nice. So what foreign languages do you speak?
French, Spanish, Italian, German, and Portuguese.
No shit.
Yeah, so they get kind of weak. Like German's my weakest.
Dude, are you like the most interesting man in the world? What is this?
So it's funny. My ex-wife, like when she would hear stories that I would say, it's like, oh, you did this and you lived in France. You were in the Marine Corps. You finished college in 2.5 years? Like what? You're lying. There's no way.
It's like you try being 5'5" and 80 pounds as a freshman.
So it's like the pressure's on.
Yeah,
I got to do above and beyond what's expected.
That's cool, man.
But the funny thing is I got the Rotary International Scholarship to go to France, right, when I was 17 years old. So I went to France, and I had 4 host families. I spent like 2.5 months at each family. My third host family lived in the city and pretty close to a gymnasium, and they had judo. And they had sumo wrestling there, too. I was trying to decide which one of those I was going to do. I'm like, this skinny guy.
Judo it is.
By that point, I was probably 140 pounds. And I'm like, well, I mean, they got thin guys in sumo. I'm like, all right, let me just do judo. And they had the funny thing was the guy who created judo was a guy named Jigoro Kano, right? Mm-hmm. And he was a tiny, tiny guy, and he would just throw these big guys around using physics, right? And they said that when you wrestled or fought with Jigoro, it was like fighting an empty jacket. And so that fascinated me. And that's where I learned the concept of Kaizen, that sequential progression,
Right.
And I've taken that as the model for my whole life now.
Wow.
Always my slogan for my business is always moving forward.
Yeah.
From pain to performance.
Yeah. No, I love it. The video that you have on the Office Gyms YouTube is awesome. The way you describe the business and how it got that name and everything. And that's cool. So you actually started judo then, and I mean, jiu-jitsu kind of stems from judo, right?
Well, it actually old jiu-jitsu, like Japanese jiu-jitsu, was first.
Oh, it was first.
Yeah, it was first, and then judo came out of that. And then a judo player went to Brazil and taught them, and they modified the judo into Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So Brazilian jiu-jitsu came from judo came from Japanese jiu-jitsu.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So is Japanese jiu-jitsu still like actively practiced, or because all you ever see these days is BJJ, right?
In America.
In America, okay.
And there's so many different styles of Japanese jiu-jitsu. And you have some of the grappling techniques. But then you have a lot of striking and things like that you'll never see in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. But judo was, the bigger, stronger guy was. I mean, if you had 2 people who had the same amount of technique, the bigger, stronger guy was going to do better, right? And so the Gracie jiu-jitsu, like it was designed for like smaller framed guys, and they're expecting that the big guy is going to take them down.
Dude,
so it's all ground stuff. They really focus on the groundwork.
I will never forget, man, just how impressive it was seeing in the first UFC.
Hoist
Gracie. My God, dude, like that was such an eye-opening thing to the world, right?
Yes.
Like here's this little guy wearing a gi, 170 pounds or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I mean, dude, it was so cool to see. And I mean, that was essentially the definition of BJJ, right?
Yep.
Like the little guy, no matter how big you are, how strong you are, like he can manipulate physics to defend himself and submit you, right?
That's great. And he was handpicked out of his family. because he's got an older brother, Rickson Gracie, who was already fighting around the world and whatnot. Who's a little bit bigger, he's athletic, and they didn't want Rickson
because he's too much of a stud.
He's a stud. He's like, no, we're going to pick this guy, the smaller framed guy, to show this is how good our art is. And it was at that point, we used to own a video store when I was growing up, right? So I started getting into this stuff in '93 when it came out.
That's awesome, man.
Right? So I'm watching this, and that was inspiring to me too, right? As a
little guy,
as an 80-pound guy.
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm watching this, and you see it's this style versus this other style, this style versus this style.
It was so cool.
Now it's morphed into everything's mixed. You're learning like the basics of all these different things.
Yeah, fucking assassins though.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, these guys are so impressive.
Athletes. Yep.
Holy crap, man! It's something I've noticed, and I've been able to know some folks who are pretty advanced jiu-jitsu people and MMA people and stuff, just kind of through the industry, fitness industry. And it always seems to me, and yourself included, folks who have that level of proficiency with any sort of combat sport are generally more laid back and just more like at ease. Like you feel at ease around them. Like they have this sort of confidence. And I was talking to actually one of my guests recently who is she's a Second Amendment advocate, but she teaches female self-defense. And we were talking about the fact that contrary to what a lot of people might think about someone who's a trained killer, essentially, who's a trained fighter, they're not always walking around looking for a fight. In fact, the opposite. In fact, yeah. And I think it was Jocko Willink who said, I can't remember what podcast it was on, but I think he's a BJJ black belt.
He's a black belt.
Navy SEAL.
He's Navy SEAL too.
Yeah. He was like, no, my first choice is to run from a fight. He's like, I don't want to be in a fight. He's like, why would you want to be in a fight? Like, I can fight if I have to, but no, I don't want conflict. And it's like real fighters don't want conflict. They're not walking around looking for conflict. Can you kind of speak to that?
100%.
Yeah.
So, I used to teach self-defense classes, and at the gyms that I've worked at Lifetime, Bally, Total Fitness, all these big gyms.
But shout out to the Office Gym.
Shout out to the Office Gym. Yes. Absolutely. This is the best. This is the culture right here. This thing, he's going to take it by storm. I'm looking forward to multiple locations.
I'm so happy to be just involved in all of this, and and we can get back to what we were saying, but like it's so difficult to instill a culture into a company. Yeah. Like because I used to own a chain of bars and restaurants, and that was every day. That was my number one goal. The biggest battle I faced was like making it like a family, making that culture something that your employees want to come be around.
Yes.
And dude, Andy Frisella's done it with First Phorm, and Aaron here at the Office Gym, he has 100% done that. And so it's just been awesome.
Absolutely. I said, when I got the membership here, I said, I talked with him, saw that he was a person of vision. I'm a person of vision myself. I said, you know what? I want to link up with this guy. And that's how I said, this is the first downstairs. We got the Pain to Performance Lab, we're going to bring in multiple different styles of therapists. He's looking to have multiple locations and franchise, all that. I'm looking to go with it and grow with it. So, great team. I'm glad you're aligned with it too.
Hey, for now, until they ban me from everything, I'm happy to be
here. Don't get canceled.
No. But back to that.
So the self-defense. So I used to teach self-defense classes, and I said the first line of self-defense is be able to judge your surroundings and avoid the confrontation.
Absolutely.
If you're walking down a street and you see like a group of shady looking guys coming to you, just walk to the other side of the street. And it doesn't matter how trained you are. I mean, I've studied various martial arts and whatnot. I remember, coming out of a bar downtown Charlotte. It was like 2:00 in the morning, and I go to the parking deck on 5th Street, and the elevator opens up. There's some guys in there. I'm like, oh, man. Dang, I forgot my wallet. You guys go ahead. I'll catch the next one. I had my wallet. I'm like this.
You could tell why there was potential conflict there.
Potential. Yeah. Why even address it?
Yeah.
Why have to defend yourself? Now, if you are the second line of defense, if there's no way of getting out of it, anything around you use as a point of self-defense.
Yeah.
Whatever weapon you got, if you pull a John Wick with a pencil or something, it's like whatever you got to do.
One of my favorite scenes, where he's talking about it, where the old guy's talking about it. But And another, I think, important thing, man, is just like, don't be a dick. Like, don't be one of these, like, puff your chest up, like, walk around. Like, and it's funny because I guess, I look a certain way. I guess I have like resting asshole face or something, because sometimes people around the gym are like, "Oh, I thought you were a dick." I'm like, "No, man," just because I wasn't smiling at you or whatever. But it's like, I think being cognizant of that in situations like what you were in, where you're literally like, say you did stay in the elevator, like, "Hey, fellas, you're super nice" or whatever, instead of trying to be like, "Don't mess with me, I'm the shit." It goes such a long way, right?
Those people are the people who do puff themselves up. It's you see them coming into new gyms. I train at Highest on MMA for the MMA gym. Great group of people over there. We actually just had one of our fighters win the Ultimate Fighter Championship.
That's right,
Brian Battle. Yeah, Brian Battle. And then I train Jiu Jitsu with Lucas Lepre, who's like 9-time world champion. And he's super, super laid back, right? One of the most laid back people.
Jiu Jitsu guys are.
Yeah, like, super laid back. Brian Battle, super laid back, super chill, But, the people who come into the gyms and they're all puffed up and like, "Oh, I've done this before. I know what I'm doing." And like you're trying to drill with them and learn a new technique. And they're like, "No, I got this." Like, are typically the least dangerous people.
Yeah. Yeah,
because
that makes sense.
So ego is in the way,
Well, I think some of it probably comes from, with those guys being so laid back, it's like, what do you have to worry about? Like, you're confident in your skills and your abilities.
Yep.
You got nothing to worry about. You can totally take care of yourself if you have to. And I think that's so important, to have a certain level of confidence in your abilities as you move through life, right? And that's what I want to do with my daughter. I was telling you, like, I want to get her into jiu-jitsu early because, I'm not a super tall guy. Her mom is Asian. She's probably not going to be a big girl, right? So I want her to be able to defend herself, and I take that seriously. And also I think it's going to really help her self-confidence as well. So anyway, back to kind of how all of this came to be. Mm-hmm. So I know you said you were training folks in different gyms. You sort of acquired skills as you went along. I'm really interested in the mindset stuff as well. So, and you said that you found eventually, once you had gotten to a certain level of your abilities insofar as physical training and everything, you really started to realize it was the mind that was that differentiator. Can you go into that a little bit and talk about your approach to that?
Yeah, my approach to that is really, it's the Kaizen approach versus innovation. Because innovation says we're going to change all of these things all at one time, right?
Like disruption.
Yeah, disruption, which has a place in some respects until you think about behavioral psychology. And when it's humans trying to change, it's difficult, right?
Oh, yeah.
What happens to a cold rubber band that you pull too hard, too fast?
It breaks.
It breaks, right? So you got to warm that rubber band up and gradually stretch it out. So, and I've seen in 27 years in the fitness industry, I see personal trainers and dietitians and whatnot doing it wrong all the time.
Like every day.
Yes, every day. They're like,
I love you guys, but Jesus Christ.
I like to tell, if we can take a quick moment, I'll tell you a story about about a client I had named Josh, right? Josh he'd come to me as a connection with another friend. Josh, he owned a computer business. This was down when I was working in Columbia, South Carolina.
Okay.
He had a computer business, and Josh ate one meal a day, which was 2 pizzas. So he ate it for dinner every night. Josh was about 420, right? 420 pounds, and he ate the same meal. When I eventually talked to Josh, I said, so there's not a lot of variety in your meal planning, not a lot of variety in your nutrition. He's like, what are you talking about? He got really offended. He's like, so much variety in pizza. You can have veggie, you can have Hawaiian, you can have meat lovers. There's endless variety of pizza. I said, oh, okay, I got you, man. So Josh was at his wit's end. I mean, he had seen personal trainers. He had seen dietitians. The personal trainer, it says, man, you are like at the edge, metabolic syndrome. We got to get this weight off of your body. I need you working out. I need you on the treadmill 6 days a week. I need you working out with me, doing strength training 3 days a week. Mm-hmm. We got to get you this weight off. Like kind of the fear tactic, right? The dietitian says you're eating one meal a day. We got to boost your metabolism. We need you eating 5 to 6 small, more frequent meals throughout the day, right?
Yeah.
And they're not wrong in some sense, but the approach, right? And how do you get there? So he's motivated. He says, okay, I'm going to do it. So he takes on the diet plan, takes on the workout program. After day 3, Josh couldn't even go into work because his ankles were so swollen from walking on the treadmill. He couldn't even go into work. He tells the personal trainer to lose his number. He stays with the diet plan a little bit longer, like 5 days, and then he throws the thing in the trash can.
Yep.
So when you hear it a lot, you're in the field too.
Yep.
So he was introduced to me. I hear his story out. I said, okay, Josh, here's what we're going to do. Instead of you eating 2 pizzas for dinner, I'm going to have you eat a pizza for lunch and a pizza for dinner.
Yep.
He said, that's it? I said, that's it. He said, well, I can do that. I said, I know you can.
Did you do start with any physical activity stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
I said, your workout program is going to be to walk to your next door neighbor's mailbox and back. He said, I can do that. I said, well, let's go. Saw him in 2 days. He comes in. He's like, all right, did you get it done, Josh? Yes. I said, all right, we're gonna shift gears a little bit. All right. So your meal plan, instead of you eating a pizza for dinner, we're going to do a half a pizza for dinner, and I'm going to introduce breakfast to you. No, I can't do breakfast. It makes me sick to my stomach. I can't eat in the morning. I said, can you drink something? He said, yes, I can drink something. I said, all right, we're going to start you out a little protein shake, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Get your metabolism going. I said, your exercise program, you're going to walk to the third neighbor's mailbox and back. He said, all right, I could tell he's a little bit, I said, it's a little bit, that's kind of a hike there. And I'm like, you can do this. He said, yes, all right, I got it. See him 2 days later. He comes to me, and he's like bouncing off the walls. He's like ecstatic. I'm like, hey, Josh, what's going on, man? You seem pretty excited there. What's happening? He said, well, first of all, I've lost 2 pounds already this week, and you told me to walk to the third neighbor's mailbox. I walked to the fourth neighbor's mailbox. So my question is, when the trainer tells him to work out 6 days a week and he works out 3, does he feel more motivated or less motivated?
He feels like he's failed.
He feels like he's failed.
Yeah.
And I tell him to walk to the third neighbor's mailbox, but he walks to the fourth. Is he less motivated or more motivated?
Right. He won, so he's more motivated.
He's more motivated.
Yeah.
So it's a gradually expanding that comfort zone because, I remember I studied with Tony Robbins, in coaching and whatnot. And, I remember he drew a circle on the board, and he says, you're in the middle of this circle. This is your comfort zone. And what happens is something's going to hit outside of this circle, and if you don't go and take care of it, something similar is going to hit on another side and then on another side until you feel, and all that pressure is going to start squeezing you in because it's lowering your capabilities, right? Mm-hmm. You're not empowered, you're enabled. And so until you burst through that circle and go out and you take care of that one thing, now, what happens is it expands your entire circle so that now anything similar to that, now you've got a handle on it.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah.
So the approach that I take is that Kaizen approach of sequential progression, A to B, B to C, because getting a little bit nerdy right now, but like you're an intellectual biochemist and whatnot.
I moonlight as one sometimes.
So I like to study the brain. And so the fear response, they say fight, flight, or freeze, right? So what happens is when you see this big looming goal, what happens is it activates the amygdala, right? Mm-hmm. The temporal lobe. It activates that amygdala, which shuts down your frontal cortex, the front of your brain where you make all these logical, rational decisions, right?
Yep.
So now you see, I have to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. And really you're frozen or you're fleeing, and you're throwing the trainer's program in the trash can or whatever, right? Or you're arguing with them, and it's this, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the approach that I take, where we gradually expand those comfort zones.
I like it, man. What do you do when you get someone who's a little too ambitious and they think you should be moving faster, they want to do more? How do you approach that with somebody?
You see it a lot. I have a client.
I would probably be that way as a client.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I had this client, he remains unnamed, but
You know who you are.
Yeah, every time that he would be gone for a while, it was all or nothing type thing. He's like not training, not doing anything, can't get a hold of him on the phone. And then he'd call me up. He's like, all right, Brad, ready to go. 5 days a week. Let's do it. Let's schedule it. 5 days a week. I said, how about we start with 3? Because you can't tell him 2 days a week or whatever. Let's start with 3 days and then get that under your belt, and then we'll expand outside of that.
Yeah.
I heard a guy say one time, it's a lot easier to pull the reins back on somebody who's super, super like gung-ho and motivated than it is to resurrect the dead.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. So as far as the stuff you're doing with Kaizenergy, what exactly, like, how does it look? What's the business model? Are you coaching folks in sort of all these areas, or can someone just come to work with you on, mindset coaching, and then someone else can just come for body work, or is it sort of a holistic, like you bring them in and you're doing everything with a person?
It depends if they're doing how they're engaging with me in the business. So Kaizenergy is kind of a play on words with Kaizen and synergy, right? That idea of, like 2 + 2 doesn't have to equal 4, it can equal more. So essentially, if they're doing kind of a la carte and they're just coming in for a body work session or a training session or whatever, it's just not many people are gonna come for just a single training session,
right?
You know what I mean? Single body work, I see it. Single coaching session, I see it. But really, I'm looking to teach them. Okay, this is really a program. Like you're taking a course in college, right? You don't just go to one class if you want to get the knowledge from the course. You have to get the whole program, right? And even the body work is kind of designed that way. But I know how it is. People have aches, pains, things like that. They come to me. I want to help teach them how to get out of that and help move from pain into performance. That's where the name comes from. But as a business model, we take care of health and wellness services, coaching and consulting, and then speaking and writing. So I do a lot of speaking engagements as well, working on a book to hopefully come out by the end of this year.
Oh, nice.
Yes, it's called One Small Step. It's the Kaizen Keys to personal transformation and performance mastery.
So you are all about this Kaizen stuff.
Kaizen, baby. So the coaching, I started out just doing wellness coaching. And then after training with Tony Robbins and everything, now it's kind of evolved into more life coaching type stuff.
What is it like working with Tony Robbins?
I wish could have worked with him individually, but I did.
I'm sure that was a lot of money.
Right. I wish I could do that. I know people pay $1 million a year to work with him. So it's amazing. It's amazing. I went to an event called Unleash the Power Within.
Yeah, I saw it was a documentary on that, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Netflix, maybe.
On Netflix, yes. I'm Not Your Guru.
Yeah. I've read, what is it, Awaken Your Inner, or
Awaken the Giant.
Awaken the Giant Within. Yeah, I read that like a while back.
But, that's cool. That's cool. I went to that event, and it just opened up my mind, see certain obstacles that I have. And a lot of people, they think that he's like a motivational speaker, or he's like, I'm not trying to motivate you. He said, if anything, I'm dehypnotizing you. He said he feels that like we're hypnotized by things in society or our beliefs or in culture or whatever. And he's like, I'm trying to help pull the scales off your eyes.
I'm always skeptical about stuff like that. But I always talk to people who go to these. I don't think I've talked to anybody who's ever gone to one of these and they're like, no, it didn't do anything for me. They're like, no, it was truly transformative. It changed everything for me. But I'm always, I don't know, man. I'm just like always skeptical that you could go to this thing and it truly changes you like that. But it sounds like it did.
Well, it's a catalyst.
Gotcha.
It's a catalyst. And he was trained in NeuroLinguistic Programming. So NLP. He was one back in the 70s. I mean, he was this boy wonder or whatever, 18 years old, and you're pulling in 6 figures back in the 70s. You know?
Yeah.
And so he was trained in NLP, and he said that he had people coming to him saying, like, you didn't fix me. Like, I stopped smoking. He's like, how long did you stop smoking? He's like, I stopped smoking for 2 years, but then I started back again. So he's like he's a computer program. You got to reprogram it. And so he really came out with this neuroassociative conditioning, because it's not about just reprogramming you, or you're not going to go to this one event and be changed for the rest of your life, because we've got that force of entropy and all of our habits and whatnot that's been pulling us in that opposite direction for so long. You're gonna have to go back. I remember having my guitar tuned from a buddy of mine, and it'd been like pulled in the wrong direction, the strings for so long. He tuned it. He's like, I'll tune it again for you next week. I'm like, wait, I thought you just tuned it. Why do you have to tune it next week? He's like, well, because it's been pulled for so long in that direction. It's like, it's going to be weekly, and then it's going to be bi-weekly, and then monthly, and then for the life of the guitar, maybe twice a year, you might have to tune it. That's conditioning. So you have to, the event is fine. It's good. It's motivating. It is a catalyst. If you use it as that, not if you're just sitting there hemming and hawing, going like, how long, when's it going to be over? You got to be receptive. But then you have to do, what do you do when you come back home? When you're not in that bubble anymore and the day-to-day confronts you? What do you do to keep your mindset on where you're trying to go, or the breakthroughs that you had? What do you do to remind yourself of that? You know, so I do that, and I have a system for doing that every day. It's in the morning, right? And I have this routine. I get up and I go through some devotionals, and then I kind of take 5 minutes and say some affirmations, and then I go on my gratitude walk. And when I'm on my gratitude walk, it's kind of like a spiral. I start with thanking, however you want to put it, God, the universe, whatever, for my life, the breath in my lungs, for the planet that I'm on right now. And then I start spiraling out to my wife and my children. And I'm just flooding my heart with gratitude, right? And let me tell you what, when I come back off of that walk, 10, 15-minute walk, and then I'm visualizing what I want to see happen in my day, what I want to see happen in my life, my goals and all that things. And I'm feeling the feelings as if they're already here, right? I come back off of that walk, and buddy, I'm vibrating. I'm literally like a bull held back in a pen, ready to take charge.
Wow.
Yeah.
So daily affirmations, gratitude walk, and that you do that every day. That sort of primes you for getting after it the rest of the day.
Yeah, and I'm not perfect. There's days when you have to flex, and if you are rigid, you get broken, right?
Yeah, like the rubber band.
Yeah, like the
cold rubber band.
The difference between an oak tree and a bamboo. Life happens, and you got to be able to sway with it like that bamboo. You got to be able to, but having a system for me, especially, I think I told you I'm a little ADD, so I'll have to have frameworks and I have to have systems in place, and that keeps me guided. It's the white lines on the road, right?
Yeah.
It keeps me guided, and having that system allows me to be flexible. If I don't have a system, I'm not being flexible. Some people think they're being flexible when they're really just being wishy-washy.
Right.
They're a boat on the ocean being tossed.
Yeah. Yeah. There's difference between being flexible and sort of passively floating through life and going wherever the breeze blows, right?
100%.
So is that the sort of stuff you coach with your mindset coaching, or have you developed sort of a separate philosophy that you employ, or is it essentially these sort of things like what you were just telling me about the gratitude and the affirmations and all of that? Is that sort of what your mindset coaching is based around, or is that like kind of an individual basis type stuff? Or?
It's an individual basis. It's really, I identify, so the Kaizenergy philosophy has 8 key areas of life.
Okay. Tell us.
And so essentially what I'm helping people to do is I'm helping to find out where the gaps are. 8 key areas of life. It's your home and finances, your art, which is that creative expression that everybody has.
Yeah.
Me, it's writing. Some people it's cooking. Some people it's gardening, what have you. Everybody's got something.
I want to ask you about writing if we have enough time.
Sure. And then it's business, health, education, relationships, and spirituality. Okay. Right? So that's the different areas that I like to that I see it in a human being. Business, it could be your career, it could be your job, or whatever. It's your work.
What do you, not to cut you off, where do you think most people fall short out of those 8 areas? Where do you find yourself concentrating the most with most people you work with?
For me, it's in my wheelhouse. It's health. It's health and wellness.
Okay.
That's where I focus the most, and everything spins out from that.
That makes sense. I was curious. I was kind of thinking maybe even spirituality would probably be something that a lot of people lack.
It's the most important.
Yeah.
It's the most important. I was a precocious young guy when I was in like ROTC and whatnot when I was in high school. And I would go and I would volunteer. You get a little ribbon. I'd volunteer at the nursing home, right? And the funny thing is I would ask all these people, these older people, I'm like, hey, if you could go back, like what would you do differently? I mean, I'm like punching into these people like, what are your regrets,
Yeah, dude, so, there's no, I mean, talking to old people it's one of my favorite things too.
It's wisdom, right? And so I never heard anybody say they wish they would have spent more time at the office.
Right.
I wish I would have bought these things or experienced these things, or even some people say I wish I would have traveled a little bit, but they're not like, I didn't get to go here.
And nobody probably ever said, I wish I had done less either.
Yes, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
I wish I would have done less.
Do the thing, dude. Go do the thing.
It was 3 things that kept popping up. 3 things in different order for different people, but it's 3 things that kept popping up. I wish I would have taken better care of myself. I wish I would have spent more time with the people I love. And I wish I would have gotten closer in my spiritual life.
Wow.
That was it. And I said, all right, I'm 16 years old. I don't know much about the spiritual life. I can't really help, but I can learn about. I'm getting all these muscle magazines. I remember when I'm
you're worshiping at the Church of Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah,
buddy.
So I'm like, I remember being in my algebra class, and like, bless her heart, the teacher, she eventually got to the point. There'd be 5 people on the row. She eventually got to the point where she would just send back 4 tests. Because all I was doing is she would send it back to me. I just put my name on it, pass it back.
Really?
Yeah. And so, I mean, just rebellious. And I'm just like reading muscle magazines and stuff. And then and she would ask me, eventually, I started to get into it. And she knew that I was able to figure things out. I was pretty smart, like I was in like gifted and talented programs and stuff. So it would frustrate the other kids in the class, though, because I'd be reading a muscle magazine and she'd have something on the board. Some of the kids, you couldn't figure it out. And she's like, Brad, you want to take a stab at it? And I'd look at it sideways for a little bit and say, is it this? And she's like, that's right. You want to tell them how you got to it? And so, and they were like, oh, you hear all the hemming and hawing and stuff. And so I would tell, and it wasn't the best way to get about it, but I would get about it.
Right.
So, but long story, basically, like, I would sit in class just reading muscle magazines. Now I like to call it, muscle and fiction.
Yeah.
So,
oh man, yeah, the stuff that they had us believing.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but it did open a door for me to start to like learn more and want to learn more. That's why I wanted to do that certification and whatnot. And I said, I'm 16 years old. I can learn about health and help people in the area of health. I don't know much about relationships. I don't know much about spirituality, but I can help with health. Now over time and almost 45 years, I know a fair amount about relationships and spirituality now.
That stemmed from conversations with the elderly at the nursing home where you were volunteering.
Yes.
Well, that's incredibly insightful as a 16-year-old to say, okay, here are the 3 things, here are the 3 regrets that old people have.
Yeah.
So where can I actually be effective at this age? And you tease out health, and then that's really cool, man. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily that aware or that cognizant, of directionality in life and the things they should be focused on. So that as a 16-year-old, I think that's awesome.
It really came from, I appreciate that. It really came from some of the readings and whatnot that I was doing at the time. I started reading Jean-Paul Sartre.
Okay. Yeah.
Existentialism.
Yes. Interesting cat for sure. I'll say that.
So Albert Camus and whatnot and Stranger. And so
as a 16-year-old.
Yeah. So, and I started eventually like studying like, quantum physics and stuff like that. As long as it was in English. If it was in the mathematical formulas, I was out. But
so you were interested in the 40,000-foot view,
yes.
the theoretical ideas, so
Absolutely.
Kind of like reading like Brian Greene, for example, when he writes a book for the masses based on string theory,
yes.
that kind of stuff is cool. But then if you're like, do these equations, it's like, nah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I feel you there.
My first major in college was philosophy.
Okay, nice.
It was philosophy.
Well, it makes sense. You're reading, all these existentialists and everything when you're 16.
Until they were just like, you read only these things, and I'm like, I want to read what I want to read, that type of thing. So, but
isn't it weird how still we do that? We try to say that this is the curriculum. This is the progression. You can't go outside of this. And meanwhile, hungry minds are just being essentially just held back, really. And,
yes.
Elon Musk, I saw talking about this recently. He was like, the whole grade thing makes no sense. He's like, you're essentially imposing this structure on kids where like they can only progress a certain amount because they all have to progress at the same rate. He's like, we need to do away with that, because when you look at someone who's incredibly intelligent, incredibly talented, or has different interests, like just feed that fire, man. Progress them as fast and as hard as you can in that direction, and that's how you're going to have greatness come out of the population, right? It's kind of weird.
Even the model of the education system, I forget which country it came from. Prussian. It was the Prussian education system that we adopted and we brought here because, in the mid 1800s, what did we want to do? We wanted to have factory workers and conform.
Same thing with the 40-hour work week and all that.
Sit in these rows and whatnot. It's all structure. And our world is not like that anymore by any means. But then you sit this kid who's like got information coming at him 1,000 miles an hour everywhere he goes, radio, internet, all this, and you're like, sit down, be quiet, don't talk. Take this, what I'm teaching you, versus like use your brain and your genius to tap into more than just the two types of intelligence that we teach in school.
Exactly.
Like,
and if they're not exactly that, we're labeling them with ADD and ADHD. And it's like, I look at my daughter, man, and she is a burning ball of energy. And she has this zeal and excitement for the world and curiosity, and everything is like, for the first time, she's seeing it and she has all these questions. And I'm like, man, I do not want to quell that at all. But I know next year when she's 5 and she starts school, it is going to be put into this mold and they try to control it. And so I'm really at this sort of crossroads where I'm trying to decide, like, what is the best path forward in 2021 with a kid, right, as a parent. And I think this past year has really gotten a lot of people thinking more about, is just the traditional school system kind of the way to go? Is homeschooling better? Is there, then there are alternative methods in different private schools? And I don't know. It's just that just made me think of that. But it sounds like you were kind of one of those kids who it wasn't really tailored for you, this system of control.
The box, stay in your box.
Yeah, if they had just let you run free, you probably would have advanced at a really high rate, it sounds like, if you could do what you're interested in.
If I could do what I was interested in. 16 years old, reading existentialism, I say, looking back, I say that it woke me from my spiritual slumber. Because, like, I grew up and my family was, kind of a, lower middle class, I mean, they worked hard. They
were both parents in the home.
Both parents. They were entrepreneurs, but they really didn't know what they were doing. I mean, they had some like little video stores, little game room, things like that for a while on the side.
Cool.
My dad. But the cool thing is, it inspired in me the idea of wanting to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Both my parents are in a nursing home now, but I told my dad yesterday, I said, just thinking about you yesterday because got my video up, and I said, and you inspired me to want to be an entrepreneur.
That's awesome.
You inspired me to do that because the existentialism, what I got from it, existence precedes essence. You are born and then you find meaning, right? And in some ways, I don't necessarily. I feel like some aspects of life has meaning. And then some aspects we find our meaning. So it's kind of both and type situation.
Okay.
But for me, I'm like, I don't have to be limited to like being a construction worker. Right. I don't have to be, which nothing wrong with being a construction worker, but it's not what I wanted to do. I always joked around and said cars, computers, and construction was my 3 weaknesses. I don't want to be limited by that anymore. But like for me, it was empowering to say, I can make my own life. I can decide my own destiny.
When you talk about finding meaning and destiny, did that change at all for you once you became a parent?
Yes.
Can you talk about that a little?
Absolutely. Where when you get to the point, you have a child and you realize, okay, it's not all about you anymore.
Oh boy, do you ever?
It's not all about you anymore. and then you feel like this responsibility of like and sometimes we put too much pressure in that role, but you have this responsibility of like, okay, I want to, and kind of my responsibility is to bring up a responsible, disciplined citizen in the world, who's going to be loving, who's going to be caring, who's not going to, crap on other people or whatever.
Yes.
And so can I model that? And you tend to get a little bit more careful about how you go about things because they're watching everything and they're absorbing, even when you don't think that they're paying attention, they're paying attention, and they're going to do like what you do and then some, right?
Mm-hmm. Because they're you doing something in their presence is essentially you giving them permission to do it, right? Showing them that it's okay to do that. Oh, Dad did it. For me, it definitely opened my eyes, man. It was like it was kind of one of these where it's like I thought I knew what life was all about, and then I really knew what life was all about.
Yes.
And it is sort of that same thing you said, where it's like, man, I created a human. I brought a human into this world, and now, good Lord, I'm responsible for everything. And one big struggle that I have, and maybe you can speak to this kind of coming from a slightly different background, but I think kind of getting to the same place and being like an ambitious human who tries to find meaning in what you're doing and live with purpose. A big struggle I have is I grew up, I had a terrible childhood, right? Like tons of adversity. I won't go into it, but my daughter obviously doesn't have that. She can basically have whatever she wants. She's going to she's surrounded by love and just all this positivity. And I grapple with it creating enough adversity to make her a strong person when, I also feel compelled to just give her the world. Do you battle that a little bit with your kids, and how do you actually impose adversity into their life, present them with challenges so that they can overcome, because that is so important, right? What's your approach to that?
Well,
I know it's not easy, and it's definitely a problem,
Actually, funny thing is that like this week and the past couple of weeks, I've been confronted with a situation. My son wrestles, and he's at the point where he's trying to flex a little bit of his independence, and he's like, I don't want to wrestle anymore. He's got a girlfriend and everything.
Oh, boy. How old is he?
He's a freshman in high school.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
And so
is he 80 pounds, 5'5"?
No, it's funny. He's like 120 pounds. He's taller.
There you go.
He's going to be,
all right.
The orthodontist said he's probably going to end up being about 6'4". I'm like, where did this come from?
Holy crap. Yeah.
So I don't know the hormones of foods now. Don't get me started on that. But it's so
another thing.
Yep. So anyway, I think he's just trying to flex his independence a little bit, because as I fought him, I'm like, hey, listen, you're committed to something. At the end of the season, if you want to stop, then you can stop. But like in the middle of the season, like I don't want to let you be somebody who doesn't follow through on their commitments. Right. And so, but it's like tug of war. I'm like, okay, how about you write me a slideshow? And you tell me, like, what if not this, then what? What are you going to do that's going to give you all of these values, the work ethic, the discipline, the courage, the confidence, all of these?
Yes.
I mean, wrestling brings so much value.
Absolutely.
It's independence. You're part of a team when you go to matches, but really it's up to you. You're on the mat and there's nobody else that can save you, And so it's just that one thing. What are you going to do that's going to give you these virtues?
Jiu Jitsu with Dad.
Yeah, I know, right? Like do that. So, what are you going to do that's going to bring this about? And it is pretty. It's an intense sport. I mean, you're doing 2 hours a day, 6 days a week.
Oh, those guys, it's insane.
How much they
train.
Insane.
And,
the grind. But so that's one of the things is I don't want to coddle, and I don't want them to never have to struggle, because that's enabling. I want to empower. So I give them some boundaries. I give them some rules. And they if they go outside of those boundaries, there's going to be a consequence for going outside of the boundaries. But as they show more responsibilities, I expand those boundaries. And with more responsibility comes more freedom comes more responsibility.
It's kind of a Kaizen approach to parenting.
Kaizen approach to parenting. You got it, man. Smart.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think sports is a great way.
Yep.
Physical challenges, experiencing failure, like those are really important. And kind of as an experiment, like a micro experiment of that. Like, so my wife comes from a fantastic family, amazing 2-parent family. She never wanted for anything.
Yeah.
And she is just driven, has a great personality, amazing human, just one of the best people you ever meet. And again, driven, motivated, wants to, do things together and grow and invest in real estate and all these things. And a lot of the characteristics that I got from growing up in adversity, she has sort of intrinsically, sort of part of her nature. Despite the fact that she had the easiest childhood, the sweetest, nicest, most giving, anything she wanted parents, whereas her sister grew up in the same household and is not that type of go-getter, ambitious person, and really is content to just kind of sit at home all day.
Yeah.
And so that has always to me been like, man, there's certainly a nature component to it. Like their genetics are their genetics, but how do I as a parent create that environment that's going to optimize whatever genetics they're working with, right? Because 2 people growing up in the same scenario there, it was completely different outcomes.
Yep.
And I don't want to kind of leave it up to fate completely, but I do know that I got to let her do her thing.
Right.
So I'm always curious about, what parents' takes are on stuff like that.
It's a balancing act, isn't it?
And your kids are all probably different too, right?
Yeah, they're all different. And my wife, she had 4 children in her previous marriage. I have 2 children from a previous marriage.
Oh boy.
So we're literally the Brady bunch.
Yeah,
we're 6 kids.
You're the Kaizen bunch.
Jeez
Louise.
Funny, my ex-wife was a teacher, right?
Okay.
And she had this butterfly garden in her classroom, 2nd grade. And she had this butterfly garden in her classroom. And the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis, and these kids, they see they're starting to struggle, try to get out, and these kids are like, "Oh, it's starting to come out. It's going to be a butterfly. Let's help it. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "No, you can't do that, because if you were to cut that open, it would never be able to fly, because that's moving the wings around. That's where it gets its strength to be able to fly."
Yeah.
And so for me, I started telling my clients, I wanted to have T-shirts and stuff made up. The strength is in the struggle.
Yes, 100%.
The strength is in the struggle. So I want them to be stronger people. I mean, you're a bodybuilder and whatnot. If you were to go out and lift a weight, if you were to lift 20 pounds and just lift it over and over and over again, and you stayed lifting that same weight, are you going to get stronger?
Probably not, unless you change up, rep schemes and do all kinds of different crazy sets. But no, you got to add weight.
You got to add weight.
Yeah.
Mostly, you might have more endurance. I asked my son that question. He's like, well, no, but you can do it 10 times, and now you can do it 20 times.
Right.
You're getting more endurance.
Well, in terms of just strength.
Strength that you're measuring.
You have to increase load.
Increase load.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the strength is in the struggle. Absolutely,
man. And it's like, I know that, which is why, like, I don't want to create, obviously, like, too much struggle for my kid, but like, I want her to feel some struggle, and I want her also, this is something I think you brought up earlier, is like, I want her to just be a good human, to know and to appreciate that she has been given a lot in this life, and she's very fortunate, and she needs to not look down upon others who just didn't happen to be brought up in a similar scenario, right? So like, I want to take her to the homeless shelter and volunteer to feed people and all this stuff, so she can see the nursing home, and maybe she can talk to your parents and learn about existentialism when she's 16. But yeah, man, that's one of the big struggles, right? Because it's like the canonical statement is like, hard times create hard men create good times create, weak men, and so on and so forth. Yes. And it's like, as in a nation where we have poor people who are fat, like we live in a nation of abundance, and I want to strike that balance with my own child of creating enough adversity and struggle for her to be a strong human, but also, to be a good parent at the same time. So I just wanted to get your take on that. But what else, man? Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't brought up? As you can see, it kind of goes all over the place. But
I want to make sure. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course, and by the way, you're welcome back anytime.
Absolutely, that'd be great, man. That'd be great. I appreciate that. So I want to make sure I want to say Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there and all the fellow service personnel, current and former. And I don't know if you noticed the post I did today, kind of a little bit of a background on like where this day came about. At the end of World War I, Armistice Day, the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month, they armistice, end of World War I. And then they started it a year later, Veterans Day, right? So I'm a devil dog, right? I'm a devil dog. And some people ask, they're like, where did devil dog come from? You're a Marine. Where did devil dog come from? The legend goes that in World War I, like when they first confronted the Germans, like they were just storming things and whatnot, and the Germans said, "There's Teufelhunden." They stormed it. They were like dogs from hell. They were like devil dogs, right? That's where it came from. And interesting story. Cool. You might get a kick out of. This was back in, I think it was 2008, right? When Obama was touring and whatnot, looking to go president. I was working downtown Charlotte at the Charlotte Athletic Club, and I was kind of, running a little bit behind because there was a line of cars trying to get into the parking deck. I'm like, what's going on? What is going on here?
Right.
And so finally get in. I go up, and everybody's like super hush hush at the gym. I'm like, what's happening right now? There's no music on. Like, what's going on? I see my client, and he said, it's because Obama's here working out. I'm like,
oh, really?
Oh, okay, cool.
That's cool.
And so, but I've never been one to get like starstruck or anything like that. But he walks by, and I notice he's got a T-shirt that says Marines on it, and I'm like, oh, he's got it. Well, it didn't say Marines; it said USMC. And so I'm like, oh, I said, hold on a second, let me. I said, are you a fellow devil dog? And he had his headphones. He said, I'm sorry. What did you say? I said, are you a devil dog? He said, I don't follow what you're saying. I said, okay. I said, I noticed you got the Marine shirt on. I was curious if you're a former Marine. He said, oh, no. My one of my Secret Service agents gave this to me, so I'm just working out in it. I said, okay. That kind of got me a little bit because I was like, all right, you're looking to be the commander-in-chief of our country. You don't know what the devil dog is that protects you. That was a little off for me.
Yeah, well, I could go on I could say a lot of things about that, but well, I mean, that's cool that you met him and talked to him, and you should have challenged him to like a liftoff or something. Let's max out, bro.
I wouldn't have challenged him to basketball though, because
for sure
he was pretty good. He's pretty good at basketball for sure.
That's what they say, and I'm absolutely horrible, so I wouldn't have challenged him to that either. But man, that is interesting. Like, kind of like your average citizen generally knows what a devil dog is. I mean, at least I thought.
Right.
Maybe it's grown up in the South or something, but
where
there's a little more appreciation for military and law enforcement.
Yeah.
Wow. Man. So, okay. If actually, I didn't ask you this. Are you doing any like online coaching or anything like that? Or is it all in person or?
Yeah, I do. I do virtual.
Okay.
So there's ways to get
there's
engaged.
Listeners all over. So just in case folks want
to. So, Kaizenergy.net is my website.
Right on.
And, there's also going to be, different levels of engagement with whether it's a virtual level of engagement, all the way to virtual with a presence, a physical presence, into training, coaching. I coach from a higher level for corporations and whatnot, to consulting for health and wellness companies that are looking to go online and drive business digitally and all that too. That's the consulting component.
Very cool.
And the speaking engagements, that's growing as well. I've been my main contract has been with the USO because former military, been given back to the military through a contract with the USO for the last 7 years now as a speaker and a subject matter expert or whatever.
What topics do you speak on when you speak publicly?
It's health and wellness.
Right on.
It's my wheelhouse. Yeah. And I teach a couple of fitness classes for them. I do one-on-ones. So it's health, wellness, stress management. Eventually I'll be expanding to all those different 8 areas of the Kaizenergy philosophy.
That's
for sure.
Awesome. So do you plan to, or do you currently have like staff or coaches who work beneath you or anything, or is that kind of a future plan, or what is the vision?
The coaches, it would be a vision eventually. Okay. Right now, no coaches, but other therapists and whatnot that work in tandem with me.
Okay.
Actually, we're looking to have a doctor of physical therapy to start working here in the evenings. And he works full time, in Charlotte and whatnot, but he's going
Nice.
to open up his schedule because, he can do a lot of different therapies here. This is all under the Pain to Performance labs. And that's whether you want cupping, scraping, he can do all the adjustments like a chiropractor can do. And then obviously I do all the soft tissue work and fascial stretch therapies and all that.
I got to get an appointment, man. I'm a wreck. I'm a mess.
We'll get it going, man. You can talk to some people around here this.
Oh, dude, I know they do. I know I've seen a lot of people who have benefited greatly. But so if people want to find you, it was Kaizenergy.net.
Kaizenergy.net
is the website, and I know a lot of fitness and nutrition coaches through Phorm and stuff. So, if you guys are listening, you want to take things to the next level, kind of get some coaching on how to do that. It sounds like you offer that as well, and
really. and how to expand your business.
Yeah,
I can help you. At 27 years in the health and wellness arena, I know how to help you get to a bigger level with your business too.
That's awesome, man. So I usually wrap up and ask a question of a lot of my guests, and we'll do that. But before we wrap up, man, I'd love to have you on again. I feel like we could have all kinds of awesome conversations, and It's crazy how fast an hour goes by. Yeah. But I ask everybody this, and I used to ask it specifically targeted at men, but in general, because what I used to ask was, if you could give young men a piece of advice today, what would it be? But I think if you could give people in general today, in 2021, with everything we face and all the struggles we have as a society, what do you think is one good takeaway piece of advice? And you can target at young people if you like, but what would you say is just one piece of advice you'd give, given all your experience?
Okay.
Not to put you on the spot.
You're fine. You're fine. I say that I want them to know the two gifts that they were given, which is unlimited potential and that they are unconditionally loved, right? But my message on my phone, this is the message. It says, get healthy, stay focused, make it a habit, and follow your dreams with passion.
Boom. Get healthy, stay focused, make it a habit, follow your dreams
with passion.
I love it, man. Folks can find him at Kaizenergy.net. You're on Instagram is it Brad.Robinson or?
It's Brad Robinson 2001.
Okay, gotcha.
And also there's Kaizenergy Coaching, which is, these are brand new accounts, but
okay.
Look me up there.
I'll link to all of them in YouTube, Spotify,
okay.
everywhere you guys are listening to this. I'll make sure I include all the links. So if you're interested in linking up with Brad on coaching or body work or anything like that, mindset coaching, nutrition coaching, you name it, or if you're a coach and you want to increase your game, link up with Brad as well. Anything else, man, in closing before we wrap this baby up?
I'm just honored you had me on here.
Oh, dude, I'm honored you joined me.
Absolutely.
And since we are neighbors, dude, we'll have to we can make this a regular thing if you want. I'm always wanting to have conversations. So,
right.
There's one thing I was going to say right before we wrapped up, and I freaking lost it. Oh, I didn't get to do it, but I do want to talk to you about writing. So maybe we can do that off the show or for another episode. But Brad Robinson, everybody, thanks a lot for your time, brother. And until next time, everybody, keep your minds free.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.